You have a bag in your closet. It cost you somewhere around $200. It has never been opened. That bag is not the problem. The problem is what's missing from it, and the gap between what's in that bag and what your family actually needs in the first 60 minutes of a grid-down event. That gap is what this video is about. There's a specific piece of gear on this list that costs nothing extra. You already have access to it right now, and it might be the most operationally important item in the entire kit. We'll get to it. But first, understand what we're actually building here. Everything in this video comes from the same sustainment framework I put together in the field reference. It's linked in the description if you want to go through the doctrine behind each item yourself. 7 items, $113 at Walmart, and they map directly to the Army's FM, sustainment, pillars, supply, communications, water, thermal protection, field services, navigation, and financial management. A veteran looks at this list and sees a sustainment kit. Most people see random stuff from a camping aisle. That distinction is the entire point. The first item is a 20-gallon galvanized steel trash can with a lid, $35. Hardware aisle. In 1962, a 1.4 megaton nuclear detonation, 250 miles above Johnston Atoll, destroyed 300 satellites, tripped circuit breakers across Hawaii, and knocked out streetlights in Honolulu, 900 miles away. Nobody on the ground was physically hurt. Their electronics were the casualty. Everything sitting inside a metal enclosure at that moment survived. That's not a coincidence. That's physics. MIL STD 461 G. The military standard for electromagnetic interference control specifies that conductive metallic enclosures with continuous metal-to-metal contact at all seams provide 40 to 60 decibels of attenuation against ion pulse fields, enough to protect the electronics inside from a high-altitude nuclear EMP at 50 kilovolts per meter field strength. The average prepper buys a Faraday bag from an online retailer, $30 to $80 each. Failure mode. Fabric. Faraday bags have no lid seal continuity. Any gap, any zipper seam, any fold, and the attenuation drops to near zero. One unsealed edge in the bag is theater, not shielding. A $35 galvanized steel trash can with aluminum tape on the lid seam passes the same physics test as an $800 commercial Faraday cage. MIL STD 461 doesn't specify a brand. It specifies continuous conductive contact. Line the inside with cardboard. Place your emergency radio, your backup phone, and your solar charger inside. Seal the lid. The logo on the side is irrelevant. It also stores 20 gallons of water when grid-down pressure fails, which happens within 4 to 6 hours. And in a scenario that extends past 72 hours, when municipal sewage pumps lose power, that same can becomes a sanitation system. 3 functions. $35. Kit total, $35. Cell towers carry a small battery backup, 4 to 8 hours. After that, they're dead. That means your $1,200 smartphone, your weather app, your FEMA alerts, your maps, becomes a paperweight sometime in the afternoon of day 1. The only guaranteed government communications channel that keeps transmitting through a grid-down event is NOAA weather radio, broadcast on VHF frequencies between 162.4 and 162.550 megahertz. NOAA transmitter towers are required by FCC mandate to maintain 72 hours of backup generator power. That's the law. FM 602.53, Tactical Radio Operations, establishes that communications redundancy is non-negotiable in degraded environments. Units must maintain the ability to receive command information through at least 2 independent means. That doctrine didn't come from a classroom. A hand crank and solar NOAA weather radio at Walmart runs $16 to $30. Brands like JASM, TSV, and Top Vision are stocked in the electronics and emergency prep aisle. It receives NOAA broadcasts indefinitely with no power source required. It also carries a hand crank power bank, 2,000 to 7,400 milliamp hours, for charging small devices when grid and solar are both unavailable. Hurricane Sandy, 2012. Cell networks across New Jersey and New York failed within 6 hours. NOAA weather radio stations stayed operational on generator backup throughout the storm. Families with hand crank radios received evacuation route updates. Families relying only on smartphones were communication blind for 36 hours or more. Starlink satellite internet costs $120 a month and requires a powered receiver dish which dies when your house loses power. A $20 radio receives the same critical government broadcasts indefinitely. That comparison doesn't require additional commentary. Running cost, $57. Your tap water pressure depends on electrically powered pumping stations. Within 4 to 6 hours of a grid-down event, municipal water pressure in most suburban areas drops to 0. The water in your pipes is gone. The water in the creek behind your neighborhood is your only available source, and without filtration, it won't kill you as fast as thirst, but it'll kill you. FM 21-10, Field Hygiene and Sanitation, specifies that waterborne disease is historically the #1 non-combat killer of soldiers in field conditions. Every individual soldier carries a personal water purification device. The Army's individual purification requirement filters a minimum of 1,000 liters before replacement. The LifeStraw personal water filter at Walmart costs $16 to $20. It filters 1,000 gallons. That's 3,785 liters, enough clean water for one person, for 5 years, at FEMA's recommended minimum of 1 gallon per day. It removes 99% of bacteria and 99% of parasites. It meets EPA and NSF P2/31 drinking water standards. A family of 4 burns through 30 gallons in 7 days. When the stockpile runs out, the family with no filtration capability has no options. The LifeStraw turns any water source, stream, puddle, rain barrel into a viable supply. That's not a backup plan. That's an infinite plan. Hurricane Maria, Puerto Rico, 2017. Municipal water treatment facilities lost power and stayed offline for weeks. The CDC documented multiple waterborne illness outbreaks as residents consumed unfiltered water from streams and cisterns. Families with any mechanical filtration capability avoided those outbreaks entirely. FEMA's after-action report cited water purification as the single most critical individual preparedness gap identified during the response. 1,000 gallons of bottled water at $1.50 per gallon costs $1,500. The LifeStraw delivers the same volume for $18. That's a difference of more than 8,000%. Total so far, $75. Your house becomes an outdoor environment when the furnace stops. Hypothermia doesn't happen at 10 degrees Fahrenheit. It happens at 50 degrees with wind and wet clothing, which is exactly what the inside of an unheated suburban home looks like on day 3 of a winter grid failure. Texas. February 2021. The grid failed for 5 to 7 days. Indoor temperatures in unheated homes dropped below 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Emergency rooms reported hundreds of hypothermia cases, not from people being outside, from people sitting in their own homes. FM 4-25, POK. 11 First Aid and the Army's hypothermia prevention protocol specify that reflective thermal barriers must be used to prevent heat loss in casualties and personnel in cold or wet environments. Mylar space blankets, metallized polyester film reflect 90 to 95% of radiated body heat back to the user. They were originally developed by NASA. The Army's SARE program adopted them because they work in field conditions where core temperature loss becomes incapacitating within hours. A human body loses 50 to 60% of its heat through radiation in cold conditions. A fleece emergency blanket reduces heat loss by 40 to 50% through insulation. A Mylar blanket interrupts the radiation loss mechanism entirely 90 to 95% retention. In extended cold exposure, that's not a marginal advantage. That gap determines the outcome. A 4-pack of Mylar blankets at Walmart costs $6 to $10. 4 fleece emergency blankets at $25 each would cost $100 for inferior thermal protection. The Mylar blankets also tape over windows to retain interior heat. Signal aircraft from over 10 miles away using solar reflectance, and enhance improvised water collection systems. 4 uses. $8. Families in Texas who created small thermal enclosures, reflective barriers, shared body heat, sealed rooms, survived without injury. The ones who waited for the HVAC to come back on did not all have that option. Out of pocket, $83. 100 feet of nylon cord. Look at it. It looks like the least important item on this table. That's the point. MILC 5040H is military specification for type. 3 nylon parachute cord, 550, paracord, minimum tensile strength of 550 pounds for the outer sheath. 7 inner nylon strands, each rated at 50 pounds. Total inner strand capacity of 350 pounds across applications. FM 21-76, the U.S. Army Survival Manual devotes an entire section to cordage as a critical multi-use field resource. The inner strands can be extracted and used as fishing line, as trigger lines, as cinch material. Each application requires a different diameter. MIL C 5040H provides all of them in one unit. Hardware store twine has a tensile strength of 20 to 50 pounds and no inner strand utility. When it breaks under load, securing a tarp, lashing a shelter, improvising a clothesline for wet gear, there's no backup and no secondary use. Paracord's architecture is a sheath, plus 7 strands. That's 8 distinct tools from one cord. Bosnia, 1992 to 1995. During the siege of Sarajevo, basic utility materials, rope, wire, cord, became barter currency. They enabled shelter construction, food procurement, and perimeter security. UN aid workers documented that families with even basic cordage materially outperformed those without in constructing livable conditions. This was not a wilderness survival scenario. This was an urban grid-down scenario in a European city 30 years ago. After an EMP, your house is probably still standing. Your problem isn't shelter from the elements. It's that every task currently performed by an electrically powered tool now requires hands, rope, and mechanical advantage. Paracord is the interface between your body and the physical world when machines stop working. The full separate kit, dedicated twine, fishing line, and tie-down straps from a specialty retailer costs $45 to $60 to replicate the same functionality. 100 feet of MIL Spec 550 paracord at Walmart costs $10. One note: check that the label specifies 550-pound tensile strength before purchasing. Non-spec paracord style rope is increasingly on store shelves, rated as low as 200 pounds. $83 in Walmart purchases. One item left before the close. But stay here because the next item has no price tag, and it might be the one that determines whether your family can transact at all in Hour 1. Everything we've covered in this video is sourced from the same sustainment framework in the field reference. It's in the description. That reference covers specific additional items across communications, water management, shelter, and navigation. Everyone doctrine-backed, everyone under $30. The link is in the description. 30 seconds, then come back here. But stay with me because the next item on this list is the only one that requires $0 at Walmart, and it's the one the Army's unconventional warfare doctrine specifically trains operators to maintain as a mission-critical resource in denied environments. Compass, $10. Camping aisle. The Carrington event, 1859. The most powerful solar electromagnetic pulse ever recorded. It destroyed the global telegraph network within minutes. Every electrically connected communication, and navigation system failed simultaneously. The only people who continued moving with confidence were navigating by celestial and magnetic means. That's the same physics your $10 compass uses today. FM 3-25.26. Map reading and land navigation is the definitive Army manual on terrain navigation. It explicitly states that magnetic compass navigation is the baseline skill for all movement in communications denied or GPS-degraded environments. GPS is listed as a supplement to not a replacement for magnetic navigation. The SEER curriculum requires all students to demonstrate compass proficiency because GPS signal is treated as an adversarially deniable asset. GPS satellites themselves aren't destroyed by a surface-level EMP, but the receiver on your phone is. And without cell signal or Wi-Fi, offline maps only function if they were downloaded beforehand, which the overwhelming majority of users haven't done. In a grid-down event where family members need to converge on a rally point from different locations, a compass and a printed topographic map is the only guaranteed navigation system in operation. A Garmin handheld GPS costs $200 to $400 and is destroyed by ionic pulse unless stored in a Faraday enclosure. Even protected, it requires batteries and satellite acquisition time. A compass at $10 and a printed USGS topographic map at $10 total $20. The analog system requires neither batteries nor satellites. One note on the map. The USGS has signaled potential budget reductions to its print mapping program. Download and print your local map quadrants from nationalmap.gov before any access disruption. That's free today. It may not be available indefinitely. Total Walmart purchases: $93. 6 items. 1 left. Now the item that costs nothing extra. FM 3-05.130. Army Special Operations Forces, Unconventional Warfare, covers operating in environments where normal financial infrastructure has failed. It specifically addresses physical currency as a mission-enabling resource when electronic financial systems are non-functional. The 2008 EMP Commission Report on Banking and Finance Infrastructure states directly, 100% of ATM networks, 100% of electronic point-of-sale terminals, and 100% of digital payment systems would be non-functional within hours of a grid-down EMP event. The average American carries less than $20 in cash and relies entirely on cards, phone payments, or digital wallets. When the grid goes down, every card reader, every ATM, and every digital terminal is dead. The person who shows up at a gas station in hour 1 with $100 in small bills can negotiate for fuel, food, or information. The person with a debit card cannot do anything. The merchant has no way to process it, even if they want to. Venezuela, 2016 to 2019. When digital banking infrastructure became unreliable during power outages and hyperinflation, physical cash, even in small denominations, became the dominant transactional medium for basic goods. Families who maintained physical cash reserves continued to access food markets. Families dependent on digital transactions were locked out of basic commerce for days at a time. 5 $20 bills, $100 face value, available today at any bank, ATM, or Walmart Money Center. Veterans who've deployed to austere environments already understand this instinctively. They know that purchasing power equals whatever you can hand someone right now, not what your account balance says. The $100 in cash doesn't add to the Walmart total. $93 at the register, $100 from your own account, in small bills, in a waterproof envelope inside that galvanized steel can. That's the kit. You came into this video thinking about gear. You're leaving it thinking about systems. That's not a minor shift. That's the difference between buying things and building sustainment, between spending money and solving problems. The 7 items you just walked through aren't random. They're the FM 4-0 sustainment pillars mapped to a grid-down civilian environment. Communications protection, information redundancy, water capability, thermal management, Field utility. Navigation. Financial function. A logistician looks at a problem and asks, what fails first, and what replaces it? That's the question you're now asking. That's a different identity than the one you walked in with. Here's the specific action. Take the 1,000-gallon filtration math from the life straw and run it for your household. One person, 1,000 gallons, $18. Multiply by your household size. Drop that number in the comments. Total gallons required. Total cost. I'll tell you where you stand against the FM 21-10 individual sustainment standard. If this channel is where you want to keep building this, subscribe. The next video goes deeper into the sustainment framework, and what you learn here will make it land differently.